Thank you very much. I have a few questions that were given to me yesterday. I suppose these are two people, but each of them has written more than one question. I do not know if this house were to give me questions and having more than one question, how would I manage that? Yes, but let me just read the questions first and then we try to answer them. All right. The first question is, Pastor, you spoke about keeping yourself pure until marriage. What if you have made a mistake and indulge in sex before marriage, and so on and so on? I think we've got the gist of the question. And I'm sure this must be coming from a young person referring to the first lesson that we gave, the second lesson that we gave on Tuesday. Now, of course, for any sin, including this one, including indulging in sex, if you confess and forsake it, God forgives. He will forgive you. But if in doing it, you offended your partner, it will take time to restore trust in him. And we're going to be talking about trust sometime in the week because it's a very, very important element in marriage relationship. That is the first question. The second one, of course, reads thus: what if I was raped and my innocence was taken away from me? How does God deal with such a case? That's a very interesting question, isn't it so? And this is happening every day. Well, rape is not something you choose. You don't choose to be raped. Therefore, God cannot judge you on that. What you need is to be consoled and comforted rather than be condemned. I don't think God will condemn you for that. Because actually you are hurt. Because you didn't want this. Nobody chooses this. So please, and be comfortable. God is not going to hold this against you. Now the third question is, what if one has made a mistake and married out of church? How does one rectify that mistake? Does it mean one must give up on the marriage to please God? It's a nice question, isn't it so? Yeah, it's very relevant to the presentation we made, and that is, as a church, we also have a policy where we encourage our children to get married inside the church. And there are churches also which are doing the same thing, the Jehovah's Witnesses, also the Assemblies of God. I happen to counsel, counselees from those churches too. Their policy, and they are strict in that, is that their children must be married by them. And if I'm invited to do anything, it's always to be a guest speaker. And they want to marry their own children because they want to ensure that these children get married inside and are married by their own pastors. And then, of course, the third question is, yes, we've read that question. And I think if you're already in marriage and it is sufficient to apologize to God and keep your marriage, you don't have to get away from that marriage. To leave your partner and in the name of being converted will only be hurtful to you and your partner and your children. You can't, after having children, having been in this marriage 5-6 years or so, having children there, and then all of a sudden you say that now I listened to the pastor saying that it was wrong to get married to somebody outside, and then you leave the whole thing. That would be stupid. I think you need to stay there, and you just ask for forgiveness from God, and then, of course, it's going to help you in that marriage. Then, of course, the last question here is, Monday you spoke about keeping ourselves till marriage because it brings trust between the couple. How would you deal with rape that was never reported, and the perpetrator was the previous boyfriend? How do you then correct that situation? You'll forgive me, I can't read this properly. It's written very small, and I suppose this person is a doctor. How many doctors here? Yeah. All right. This issue was once disclosed to one of the friends, but the friend never believed the lady. Instead, the lady was told that she is lying and is trying to cover up her act by pointing to the rape. I know these situations. Sorry that I cannot read it properly, and I know that you wanted to sort of communicate something here. I do deal with these situations where a person has been raped and kept this for many, many years. And when she reveals it at last, she will say to me, Mngqibisa, my parents do not know anything about this. Maybe one person that I ever told about this never believed. He or she just said that you are just covering up and you know your mistake by saying that you were raped and yet you are not. Yeah, well, my answer to this, I believe that you should tell each other about your past. Remember, I mentioned this, that when you get married, please try to open your hearts. Each must know all what the other makes one tick. In other words, don't hide anything. It's very dangerous for a person to discover something that you should have kind of exposed, but you didn't. However, in some situations, you may have to use common sense. In other words, you share this information with your partner when he or she is ready. You can keep it for a while, not immediately, because and might say, were you raped? Then disappears. But you need to be wise. Martin Luther once said that if you lack knowledge, come to us. It will give you knowledge. If you lack wisdom, and go to God, He will give you wisdom. But if you lack common sense, neither God nor we can help you. So it's very important for you to use your common sense here. You can tell this person when you think that he's ready. But be sure that you will at some point and expose this. Don't hide it. Yeah, don't hide it. He or she must not discover it. Because once that happens, it may jeopardize your relationship. All right. And I do have a few questions that have been handed to me now. I haven't looked at them because they were collected only yesterday. We'll try and answer those tomorrow. I hope that I've tried to sort of answer these maybe satisfactorily. If not, please pull me by the jacket if you were one of the questioners here so that we can deal with that. I know that these things are very sensitive. Thank you very much. All right. Yesterday, for the benefit of those who are not with us, we're answering the question, is there hope for singles? Wow! There's hope for singles. And we looked at the categories of the single parents, the causes of this singleness, and the challenges that face those who are single parents. But at the end, I pointed out to you as to how, to go about this thing, how to manage it. Don't focus on yourself. Yeah, don't brood over your situation. Try to look for others who are just as hurt and try to help them. In so doing, you are actually healing your own situation. And then, of course, we emphasize to you that in spite of all what has happened, God is on the side of the singles. Did you hear that message? That's right. That's right. That is very important. Now, tomorrow we'll be looking at the question. We'll be talking to men tomorrow. We'll be saying, so you are the boss. So you are the boss. That's what we'll look at. Please come in your big numbers. If you are a husband, make sure that you are here tomorrow as I'll be addressing the question, so you are the boss. Tonight, we want to address a lost wife. A lost wife. Now, of course, we base our presentation on the book of Proverbs. Very popular chapter. Whenever women come together, dealing with the spiritual things, this chapter will always be one of those that they consider. Chapter 31, and I'm trying to look at a number of verses. There are quite many, but we'll try and hit on those that are very important. Chapter 31, verse 10 to 31. A wife of noble character who can find. Ow! She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still dark. She provides food for her family and portions for her servants. She considered a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Oh. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She says that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand she holds a distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms for the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpassed them all. Hey, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands. Let her works praise her in the gates. Hey! Sometimes I wish I could read it in my language. I love it there. All right. We'll try and, of course, I have both translations, but this one I'm not going to use because many of you do not understand Xhosa. I'll go straight to what we want to talk about. And I want to take 4 things in this passage, and then we'll sort of discuss those 4 things. One, we would look at the wife and her personality. Just put you one side and look at you and your personality. And subsequent to that, we'll look at her related with her husband, her relationship with her husband. And then thirdly, we'd look at her relationship with other people. And then lastly, her relationship with God. We're going to talk about those 4 things. Please, if you have a pen, write them down. Let's go to the wife and her personality. Now, verse 10 in that chapter says, a wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. You know, if you were to look at the Bible that is called Septuagint, you don't need it. You don't have it. It's only the pastors. I'm sure Mfundisi Nobunayo. Yeah, but that is the first translation. I wouldn't say the first, but say the earliest translation from Hebrew and Aramaic into Greek. Now, the Bible, the original Bible was written in Hebrew. If I were to write Hebrew here, you wouldn't know whether these are insects or what. Yeah, but that's a language, deep language. Now, of course, the Jews were reading this Hebrew, and they would be taken to exile, from time to time. At one time, they were taken, by Assyrians. At another time, they were taken by the Babylonians. And there are a number of them. There are places where you'd find a group of these Hebrews. Now, because some of these children were born in exile, and they adopted the local languages, they didn't know their language. But when they wanted to read the Bible, they couldn't read it, and therefore it had to be translated into a language that they could speak. And in this instance, the language that was used internationally, very much like English. If you go to Hong Kong, you'll speak in English. Go to America, you speak in English. You go to Europe, it's in English. Then it was not English. It was Greek. That was lingua franca. Now, because they were speaking in Greek, the Bible had to be translated from Hebrew into Greek. And 70 men were asked to do this task. And this Bible was called Septuagint. Septuagint means 70. In fact, they were 72 to be exact. And when you look at this one, when you look at this Septuagint, when you come to that text, it seems to emphasize here on the physique of a woman, on the outside. One time, watch the TV where there were ladies and who were sort of weightlifting. And there was this particular one. I looked at this part. She was very much like a wildcat. Stop! And I looked at the chest. It was like a drum. These parts were like, shall I say, biceps like tennis ball. And I looked at these parts. This was like a python. I said to myself, Lord, I pity the man who is married to this lady. He must never, never misbehave. This one can break him into 2 pieces. That's how strong she was. Now, when you look at the Hebrew, that is the King James Version, does not talk about the physique and of this lady. It says a virtuous woman, which means high morals, upright, honest, respectable. That's what we talk about when we talk about this woman. And then if you look at the NIV, it says the woman of noble character who can find. We talk about a person who does not need surveillance here. Person who cannot be bought or sold. That's the kind of a wife. And then it goes on and says, her scarcity is more than rubies. Yo! Now a ruby is a beautiful stone that competes with diamond. You don't find a ruby anywhere. I can remember there are 2 places that I can remember offhand, because you don't find it anywhere. But it is said of this woman, she is more scarce than rubies. You don't just find her anywhere. There are many women, but very few wives. I always tell this young man, not everybody who's a woman out there is a wife. A wife comes once like Christmas. And I always beg them that if you find one and you are convinced that this is the right one, please cling to her tenaciously. Bam, bam, comes once in a while. And it is said, where do you find this one? Indeed, you don't find it anywhere. This woman is not just scarce, but she's precious. She's valuable. She's a great asset once you find. Busagut. Once you get a wife, don't fool around. Don't fool around. All right. The Bible says, where will you find? Now, this woman looks after herself and her environment. If you look at verse 22 there, it says she makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen. That's one passage, but it has 2 elements there. Let's start with the last one. Clothed in fine linen. Generally, how a woman looks on the outside is what, firstly captivates a man. Everything else follows. I remember asking one young man who was a lawyer, was in my office. And he was courting, and this lady was also a lawyer. And I asked him, what really attracted you to this lady? He said, "Uyambona nje nawe mfundisi." Beautiful woman. Beautiful woman. And another one, of course, was a policeman, was sitting also in my office. I started with the lady because I always want to experience what they experienced when they first met. And then, of course, she babbled, she went to town, how they met, etc., etc. In the meantime, the man was quiet. I eventually came to him. "Tell me, sir, how did you meet this lady?" He said, "Mfundisi, I was taken to this lady by car. I can remember when I came back from that meeting, there was something in my head that said, Nkri, Nkri, Nkri." Now, I asked, in the meantime, the lady was laughing there. I said, "Did this man tell you that you caused him to be, to be crazy?" He said, "No, he didn't tell me that. This is madness. This is madness. This is how we are when we see these good ladies. Akunjalo. Yes, you know that we are attracted by their beauty, by their legs, etc. Those are the things that, attract us. And, of course, I always say to women, listen, once you arrest somebody, please try to keep him there. The women operate in fallacy to think that once you attract the man, he's going to remain here. No! There's a lot of work that you need to do. Remember, the competition is tight out there. There are ladies with long nails, and the computer, responds even before those fingers reach there. Yes. And these women come into the office of your husband. They haven't come to pick up a file. Even before she comes in, you can smell the aroma. No! He don't even listen. He is so confused. In the meantime, when we tell no man, try to keep up. Try to keep up. Yeah, because the competition outside is very tight. I don't mean you should decorate yourself like a little Jezebel, with all of these things. In fact, I'm always scared to see somebody like that. Just be simple as you are, simple, but be neat. Don't give your husband the reason to go out. Ask him, Zolile, what is it that you want outside that you don't find inside? He must not know what it is. Be yourself, and an Adventist young lady can really be attractive. So men, and I'm saying to women, please try to keep up so that you can keep your husband in the relationship. All right. Then, of course, the Bible says in that passage, and this person is taking care of herself as well as the bedroom. Now, bedroom to me represents the environment. It represents your surrounding. The bedroom condition suggests how she views the environment, her appreciation of cleanliness and beauty. Aye! There are women who are very clean and neat on the outside. If you meet them at work, even at church. But go there where they stay without announcing. You'll be disappointed. You'll be greeted by spoons right at the door. And they accompany you to the kitchen where you are going to find dishes that have not been washed for 2 days. There are people who are just filthy. Many marriages are not broken by infidelity, but are broken by the uncleanliness of a woman. Zama, but clean. Zama, clean. Don't just be clean, in your body, but remember even where you stay is very important. Some men detest a woman who is oliqeleko, umbululu, kakaviti. Wow! All right, let's move. Now, of course, it is said that she's diligent. Now, if you look at verse 18, it says she sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. Her day is always short. I know that some women, when they wake up in the morning, they have a list of chores that they need to carry out. But of course, you find that you can't keep up with the day. And by the time the day ends, you still have a list of those things that have not been completed. And if you say, let me keep them for tomorrow you're going to have another list added. And therefore they say, okay, I'm just going to spend a few hours in the night. I don't mean you should kill yourself. Don't kill yourself. But at the same time, we want to say that at least your hands are meant to work. You are not being abused by being expected to work at home. So it says that this woman, her lamp does not go out at night. I always say that some women, because of being so diligent, they don't have time even for TV. I don't mean it's wrong to watch TV. But for a woman to be always sitting before the TV, I don't approve of such a woman. When there is so much and then you are sitting at the TV, it means that at least you don't have conscience of time. So this is important. And then she manages her household efficiently. The Bible says she gets up while it is still dark. She provides food for her family and portions and for 7 girls. When it snows, she has no fear for the household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. And I found that good food is very critical in marriage. In fact, when I ask men as to what it is that they want their wives to know that they love with passion, they will always, or invariably, they will mention 2 things. The first one, you'll see them massaging his stomach. Fundis, I wanted to know that I love food, and good food. And then the second thing, of course, it will always be respect. We'll talk about that at another time. Now, try, in fact, if you go to the rural setting, when these young ladies are counseled, you'll find the senior lady saying, in other words, you must always make sure that your husband gets good food. Good food really is what caused even the prodigal son to come back home. He thought of the things that were happening in the cafeteria. And this can bring back vagabonds. Ukudla yinto ezisa ihlathu umyeni ekhaya. make sure that your husband gets his food here, if you can. Don't allow him to be fed by other people. Is there anything wrong? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, by the way, it appears in that thing. All right. That's very important. Now, you make sure that you cook good food for your husband. It is remembering goodies at home that brought the prodigal son home. All right. Now, she watches a speech. In 26, she says, she speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction is on her tongue. Now, speech reveals the character of the speaker. If you were to come into a room and find us sitting there and saying nothing, we would keep on wondering as to what it is, under your cap, and how your character is. As soon as you open your mouth, then we know that this person sisele sombinza. Okanye this just njengomuntu waselokishini. Now, that's why you hear white men or Englishmen saying that, your words are an index of your character. Words are actually revealing who you are. It is when you open your mouth that they will know the truth about yourself. Now, your speech also saves a speaker from many troubles. Pastor Matlangana, who is a friend of mine, told me about a picture of a fish that he saw on the wall. He came to a hall and found this fish on the wall. And above this fish was a long fishing rod. And beneath was a big knife. And then, of course, below that knife was a frying pan. Now, this fish is speaking, is saying, I'm in this trouble because I opened my mouth. Yes. It opened its mouth and now it's facing this knife and also frying pan. Some people get into a lot of troubles because of opening their mouths. You must always guard what comes out of your mouth. All right. Again, it changes the lives of others. And I had a young girl who came to my office who was planning to get married. And then as I was asking her, she said, Mfundis, I went to the boarding school while I was still very young. And at the boarding school, young ladies would go through the windows or to go to boyfriends, or they would bring those boyfriends through those windows. But I did none of those things because the words of my mother when I left home were like chains. They're like chains. I couldn't do this simply because I remember those words. Now, your words as a parent, make sure that they are like chains to your children. Very important. Then, of course, some speakers communicate by being silent. That's why you hear Englishmen saying, silence is golden. When I came to Elderbeck, 1978, I picked up a little booklet. They had booklets that they called parades. That's where they kept the pictures of students of that particular year. Now, as I looked above, this picture, above and these faces, I noticed that there was a paragraph written in small words. It was saying, some people speak from experience. Others from experience do not speak. Sometimes you speak by not speaking. That's why it is important for you to watch what you are going to utter, because you cannot bring it back again. Cannot bring it back again. Then, of course, it also draws other people to yourself. I always ask young people who come to my office as to what it is that has caused and that they were attracted, to each other. There's a young man that I married about 10 years ago. He said to me, Mfundis, I was phoning around Kokstad, calling someone somewhere. And the phone was picked up by a lady. Apparently, this was a sort of a secretary. And the manner she spoke, she swept my feet off the ground. Made just a few sentences, but she swept my feet off the ground. And then I was curious to know as to who this lady was. And eventually, of course, I phoned as if I was calling that particular person, yet I was talking to this lady. And we ended up talking together. And then he said, shortly, Mfundisi, that woman is here today, is the one I'm getting married with. I married them in Amtata, and he was attracted by the speech of this lady. Your speech is very, very important in the family as a woman. You must always leave inroads, leave scars in your children. They must always remember your words, even when you are no more. I always listen to these young ladies in particular when they say to me, Mfundis, Mama waidlango utikum. Mama used to say, still remember what she said one time, etc., etc. And I can see that even though this woman is no longer around, but the words are still remaining with her children. So your speech is very critical here. All right. And of course, we have her relationship with her husband. Still in that chapter, I think this is verse 11. It says, her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. That is verse 11. Now, whenever we talk of, confidence, we are referring here to her conduct in as far as she relates, to other, to the opposite sex. Infidelity today is no longer an issue that affects only men. It happens a lot, and with the ladies. One time, I just spoken over the radio. It was very early on Sunday morning. And of course, there were people who wanted to speak to me. I could see the machine trying to prevent them from speaking. Eventually, of course, I finished. And then somebody from somewhere was able to get through and said, "Is that Dr. Mngqibisa?" I said, "Yes." "Where are you, sir?" And of course, I told her. She said, "We are coming, don't leave." It was on a Sunday morning. Of course, I lingered around my office until about 12-ish in the midday. Eventually, there came a van with 3 people. It was a gentleman with 2 ladies, and it came very close to my office. And my office is situated this way. It's the door here. As soon as you come into the door, there is a sofa here where we set 2 people. And then, of course, they came in. It was a lady, a shortish lady, stout, with a coat and spectacles. She came in and sat immediately, at the beginning of that sofa. And then there was a senior one, very light in complexion. She came over and sat next to this one. And there was a gentleman who had, his hair was erect. His eyes were red. You could see that the problem was here. He came all the way across the building. He came all the way across the building and sat over there. And I sat here with my desk, and behind me were my books, and I looked at them. And then the young lady who came in first said, "Mfundisi, I'm the one who called you. I'm Mrs. So-and-so. I'm a teacher. And this is my sister-in-law," referring now to the senior lady. And then she said, "That gentleman over there is my brother-in-law. He is the one who is the cause of our being here today." I had thought as much. And then she said to me, "Mfundisi, this is what happened. My brother-in-law is a teacher and also a treasurer of one of our big churches in South Africa." I'm not going to mention that. You don't need to know it. And then he says he has just lost a wife. His wife was also a member of this particular church. Apparently, the wife at some point got involved in a relationship with a pastor. And then, of course, the pastor's family was not staying there locally, and they would come only over weekends. And this lady was frequenting, the mission, that's where the pastor was staying, as if she went there for some church business, and yet she was going there for an appointment. Now, I want to say this to the young ladies that are here. Bantwana bam, this is very dangerous. If you want to open a can of worms, leave your marriage and try to tamper with the marriage of other people. You will lose happiness and peace. And of course, this lady went there, and for a while, this was quiet. It could not be seen. And eventually, this sin came up. Now, the husband asked him, "First, I hear a rumor that there is a relationship between you and the pastor. Is that true?" Yeah. She said, and she denied it completely. And of course, for some days, the man persisted asking, "First, is what I'm hearing true? That is, you have a relationship with the pastor?" And of course, for a while, this woman was denying it. And then, of course, they no longer talked together. There was no longer eating together, no longer sleeping together. And the tension now was heavy on this woman's head. And she got sick. And the situation deteriorated to a point where she said at last, before she yielded the ghost, she called the husband, "Dada, what you heard about the relationship between me and the pastor is true." And after saying that, she closed her eyes and she was gone. Of course, the whole thing now came to the head of this man, and he wanted this lady to be exhumed because he wanted to kill the pastor, wanted to kill the wife of the pastor, wanted to kill the children of the pastor, and he also wanted to eliminate himself. And now the whole thing was taken and to me as a counselor to Port Elizabeth. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but I always warn these couples that if you don't want to get into trouble, please leave the marriages of other people alone. Otherwise, you are opening a can of worms. And that's why the Bible says here that this woman is trusted by her husband. Now she looks after him. The Bible says in verse 11, she brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. I have found that women, when they came into marriage, they have two agendas. Firstly, is to improve the life of her partner, or is to take advantage of him. Let's start with the first one, to improve the life of her husband. She improves his looks. And you find a man who was a bachelor for a while, now, he's now round, nice, like a fresh tomato, and because there's a wife. And the wife does not only attend, to your physical needs, but also attends to the environment. It's our wives who buy these houses in which we are staying in. It's our wives who buy these cars. But the strange thing, women are very strange. They do all of this, but then they step back, and then you get the credit. That's why you hear, English people say that behind every successful man, there is a woman. I'm very proud of you girls. Very proud of you. And that's what women do. But of course, there are those who take advantage of a man. One time, I had a couple that came to my office. They had some problem in their marriage, and we had 4 sessions. Now, on the 5th session, when they came, they said, Mfundisi, we have not come now for ourselves. There is something very urgent that we have come to bring to your attention. You remember the first day when we came here, we spoke about my husband being the only son and to his parents. Now, his parents were, well-to-do people. They had farms, they had cattle, they had this, houses, etc. And apparently, the wife got sick. That is now the mother to the son got sick. And of course, the situation deteriorated. And there was somebody who came around to help them. Was like, I always say, is a good Samaritan. Helping them, taking them this side. Have you done this one, etc., etc. This was a lady. And in the process, the wife of the gentleman died. Now, of course, the young man that I said was the son of these people would just come occasionally. And after the death of the mother, he was sort of, he was not coming for a while until the father now got sick. And at that moment, they began to think as to what would have happened, what could have happened perhaps to that lady who was a good Samaritan who was helping, because they didn't know what happened to her. Then apparently this lady stuck, around and got involved with this old man, and they got married, and they got married in community of property, so that all the property, all those farms, all those cattle and houses fell in the hands of this lady. And of course, when they came to me, I said to them, please, now give me the results, because I'm going to a camp meeting now in Natal. I want to get the results. They sent me a message to say that Fundis, unfortunately, our father, got married to this woman, and he shortly died. So everything that they ever had fell in the hands of this woman. There are women who, when they get into a marriage, they are there to take advantage of whoever they marry. In fact, some young men always come to me and ask me if I'm going to marry old people. Yeah, Fundisi, umchatise ngophi umchato dada. Because many times the man falls into this trap of marrying somebody who has a hidden agenda, who is here only, to grab everything that she can find there. So the Bible says here, this one doesn't cause him harm all the days of his life. All right. Now, the Bible says that she respects him. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. I always say to women, the first respect you can get, you actually get from your wife. I want to challenge you women that your husband needs this respect at church, needs this respect, among his children. There are men who are not respected by their own children. And he'll tell you that, Mfundisi, it's because of this woman. My children abandazi noma ndisiciko saphi Mngqibisa. I'm not respected because of this woman. I can see a man who is respected at church, who is respected in the community, and all of this emanates from his relationship at home. Hey. Of course, respect is one of the things that are expected by men from wives in marriage. It is one of the Christian virtues. We are known as people of respect. In fact, our leader, Christ, was one of the most respectful people that we ever had. One time, they brought to him a lady who had been found in the act of adultery, allegedly. And she was brought to Christ. He said what he said, but at the end, he said, "Woman, where are your accusers?" Now, you never understand that statement until you go back to the Greek language. Because that word, woman, we don't say to women, woman. Woman, give me food. No, we don't speak like that. But it is the importance of that word you can only get when you go back to the Greek language. Because woman in Greek is actually gunai. Now, gunai means woman, yes, but it also means lady, madam. Actually, this person who has been brought to him naked, so humiliated, to Christ was still lady, still madam. Now, that passage still teaches us that we need to show this respect. Now, respect is contagious. It's very much like somebody who's yawning. If I can yawn here in this room, you might find yourselves yawning too. Oh, I don't know how it happens. Yeah, sometimes you don't even need to sit your children and tell them about respect. You simply exchange it between yourselves, you and your wife, and they pick it up. And the best legacy that you can give to your children is actually respect. It will take them through this life. So it's very important for us to be people of respect. All right. Now, this woman is associated with the world. That is the third one. And it is said that she helps those in need. The Bible says that she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. That is verse 20. In South Africa, which is today in trouble of unemployment, because we have about, I think it's about 7 million people are unemployed today in South Africa. They are between 7 and 10 million. Now, I can see that we are still going to have problems in people being out of employment. We are still going to starve. It's the first time in my life in South Africa to see a family, a white family, coming and knocking at my door, wanting bread, not even money. I'd never experienced this before, and it's still going to be there. Now, God is not going to rain manna. No, He's not going to do that. He's going to bless you and bless me so that we can bless others. Now, we need to open our hands and help those who are in need. And, of course, this is directed to you women. I think it was in 1975, I was in the stewardship work. And, of course, we slept, in the homes of our pastors. I came to Pastor Msuseni, and that was in the evening. As I came in, shortly after I'd said, the wife brought me, a plate of food, well-dressed. Now, of course, I wondered, how did she know that I was coming? And, of course, I ate there quietly, and then she came to pick up this plate. I sort of thanked her, accompanied, that with the question, how did you know, ma'am, that I was coming? Because this plate seems to have been prepared for me. She said, Fundisi, it's our practice here at home, that whenever we dish out, there will always be a special plate that will be kept in the oven. It's for anyone who can come in the night. You benefited from that. And we taught this to all our children. There are a number of children, of course, some of them have since died. I came to Khayelitsha, and that was in Cape Town, having visited an old man who was a leader of one of the churches there. And when I came in, I found that there were quite a number of people, and there were still people coming in. Each one who came in would be given a plate of food. Each one who came in would be given a plate of food. And at the end, because I was curious to know as to where they get this food and why do they give everybody who comes here. Now, at the end, they asked me to before I left, they asked me to conduct, a prayer. Now, I accompanied that with the question, Dada, I see that there is food that is coming from the kitchen for everyone who is here. Why? Where do you get this food? And then he said to me, Mfundis, in this home, our custom, our practice is that we need to cook food that is enough for us and also for the people that will visit us. And this has been happening for years. There was a particular year when I was not working, but God was good enough, was gracious enough to keep that practice going on. I said, wow. Now, later on, I attended a funeral for somebody who was involved in the struggle. And quite a number of people were there. And I was also one of the speakers. Now, each speaker that came up would comment and say, this lady, this young man who is dead here, and his wife, this lady. And they would wake up every morning, very early, and prepare food and soup for everybody who is not working. I said, some people will find in heaven, but having never darkened the door of the church. But they lived, what the church is teaching, out there without coming into the church. I want to say this is your challenge. Make sure that when you have something, be ready to share with other people. The Bible says that her hands are opened so that are extended to the needy. All right, let's move on. Now, this woman is said to be giving responsibility to her family. I always listen to some young men who come to my office at times and preparing for marriage. They say to me, Mfundis, our mother did not treat us as boys. We were treated as girls. We were taught everything that a girl can do. I can do ironing. I can cook. I can take care of everything in the home. Now, once you do that, you are actually preparing your children to face the world where you are not going to be tomorrow. Prepare your children so that they can be able to stay with everyone when you are no longer around. So please, teach them everything. I always appreciate a person who takes time and training children so that they can live in the world tomorrow. The woman is associated with God now. Oh, I love this statement in my language. It says, "Bubuxoki ubuhle, ngamampungu ubunzwakazi, ngumfazi oyiKuthixo yedwa uyawuzukiswa." Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Now we have come to the peak of your responsibility here as a woman. Be a woman of prayer. How high you can grow spiritually is determined by how low you can bend in seeking God's favor. And there's a young lady who is around here. I'm not going to tell you who she is. She told me that her husband, when she reached her 40th year, her husband said, "Mfazi ngizawuthengela imoto. I'm going to buy you a car." She said, "No, don't buy me a car. Just in our house, build a room for me where I'm going to meet my God." Gosh! I have two lawyers. One is in Pretoria. And I picked, up this relationship with this lady as I speak over the radio from time to time. And they invite me to Pretoria every year in December. They will always have a particular day where they say it's a Thanksgiving day. And she invites, her friends, other lawyers and doctors, and I have a privilege of speaking to them. I learned from this lady that a woman can forfeit, can forego, food for the whole week because she's wrestling with God. She has deep roots, spiritually. That is the first one. The second one is also a lawyer. She's in Johannesburg. She said, "Mfundisi, we divide the night into 4. I have my prayer partners who are overseas in different places. So-and-so would start from this time to that time praying. And then so-and-so would take over from that time to that time. Another one from that time to that time. And I would take, very early in the morning up until, the morning. While we are sleeping, these ladies and they are holding the fort, are holding all these, winds so that they do not harm us. Aye! We will never know until eternity as to how indebted we are to many women, to many people that are sort of wrestling with God on our behalf. So please be among these prayer warriors. And there's nothing that secures a man as to know that your wife fears God. You know that even if you are to die, the fearing of God would continue in the home. Sometimes, you sit before the TV and not say anything. Everybody knows that at 7 we should be praying. And you sit and, seem as if you are drowsy. You are not. You are just watching us do. If I don't say we must pray now at 7 o'clock, who else is going to say it? But once you see that man and these soapies, and one after another, Zalo, and Stingo, generation, and nobody says that we must pray, then you know that the devil has taken over. The devil has taken over. And please ensure that prayer is uppermost in your life. And of course, these two lawyers I've mentioned, and I want to say to you, may God bless you as you think about these principles, 4 principles that I've highlighted to you. Take them, and they will ensure that you have a successful marriage. May God bless you. Thank you so much.
Hence the Bible calls him the second Adam, so that he may erase the faults of the first Adam. And you are no longer accountable for what the first Adam gave you through birth. I cannot be responsible for that. Had I been given a question and answer session, I would have rejected my mother.